All right. Hello, AP Human Geography people. Let's learn a lesson today that corresponds directly with my first FRQ that I'm going to have students do in the class. It's all about America and Mexico's border. So let's see some geography in action and try to come up with some solutions to some serious problems in our world today. So let's click ahead. Ba-boom, ba-boom. And with America's border with Mexico, it's important to know that the border along California, Arizona, and most of New Mexico is just a standard border in the middle of the desert. But the part of the border that I really want to focus on today is the border with Texas, because this border is a river, and that's going to make things complicated. So this whole highlighted part of the border right here is the Rio Grande River. So that's going to be a big part of today's lesson. All right, so here's my starting questions. If this is a real class, I would ask these. Students would engage with this stuff. Do you think borders are important? Why does the U.S. put so much protection at our borders and airports? Do you think history repeats itself? And today's objective, come up with a more precise way of determining America's border with Mexico. So let's jump into it and learn all about this border. So before 1848, Mexico actually owned more land than the United States. All of the land that's going to become the Western USA is owned by Mexico, including the entire state of Nevada at this time. So get it. Yeah, check it out. All this yellow used to be Mexico way back when, and we would all be in Alta California right now here in Las Vegas. And then, yeah, Texas and Chihuahua and all that was going way up there. I do remember some kind of funny that Texas used to be called the New Philippines. So something interesting to know there. But in the 1800s, numerous illegal immigrants from the USA moved to Mexico. Okay, like this is something you should know, that illegal European American white people moved into Texas. And Texas was owned by Mexico. And Mexico's like, what the heck? All these illegal immigrants coming in here. This is messed up. But the problem is Mexico had all this wide open land. They really didn't have a border. They really didn't have security. So these white people just sort of moved in, and Mexico couldn't really do a lot about it. Eventually, the president of Mexico, Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna said, you know what, we've got all this empty land. We want people to work the land. We want them to give us taxes. So these are going to be the rules. You can get Mexican citizenship if you speak Spanish, you become Catholic, and you don't have slaves. Well, a lot of these Americans that were moving into these lands broke all three of those rules. So that's something you should also know. All right, look at these illegal immigrants moving into Mexico. Gosh, they're just the worst, aren't they? Oh man, these illegal immigrants from America. Oh, they're so bad. And then this is a great little cartoon. All these American immigrants should be sent back home. They're a threat to our Mexican way of life. This is the reality 150 years ago. There are newspapers in Mexico City that talk about their frustrations with illegal immigrants from the United States. All right, well, so Mexico eventually got so frustrated that these American illegal immigrants weren't following their rules, they sent in the military to kick them out forcibly. But if you know another thing about Americans, we love guns. So a lot of these American immigrants brought their guns with them, and they fought a war that is now known today as the Texas Revolution, where it was all these American illegal immigrants fighting against the Mexican military. And amazingly enough, the Mexican military lost the war, and Texas became an independent country. Texas did not immediately join the United States. For a couple years, Texas was doing its own thing. And yeah, these American immigrants won the war, declared the independence of Texas, and I'm not going to deep dive into it too far here, but the way they won the war is just really impressive. And I went to this museum in Austin, Texas that outlined the whole thing. It was super cool. So, the Texas Revolution, fighting against the Mexicans, creating their own country. And here is a sign posted up in the Philadelphia hotel saying, hey, you want free land in Texas? Come help us fight for a new country and the Republic of Texas, its own place. So the country of Texas only existed for about 12 years. And they realized that they were basically Americans anyway. And they said, hey, United States, can we join up with you and just become a state? And the United States was like, go ahead. Well, that really made Mexico mad because Mexico was like, look, we want to take Texas back someday. And Mexico was afraid that this would be a precedent for more and more of their territories to break away and join the United States. Well, the United States was definitely going to let Texas join up. So this started a war with Mexico and America. And I could deep dive into what happened during the war. But the short answer is Mexico did a terrible job. Actually, during the Mexican-American War, Mexican armies fought each other more than they fought the United States of America, which just, there was a lot of incompetence going on in Mexico at this time. But anyway, the U.S. wins the war, and they say, hey, Mexico, now you got to give us half of all your land, including what will become the state of Nevada, California, Arizona, and Utah. So all that land gets just thrown right in to the US&A. All right, so here's some pictures from the Mexican-American War. This is when the American Marines were charging into Mexico City. And there they are. The U.S. guys wore blue, the Mexican guys wore green. And all that land gets given from Mexico to the United States, including the great state of Nevada. Hooray. All right, but this is now where things will get into where the border is today. So at the end of this war, America forced Mexico to sign the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. And I have a copy of this treaty. It's in my documents, and I hope you guys analyze it and answer some questions about it. But I want you to especially focus on Article 5, which defines the new borders between Mexico and the United States. And in the Article 5, it does make it pretty clear where the borders are. It tells you about some lines you should draw from one river to another river. And when you're going through a desert, it's pretty clear where the border is. I mean, even today, I've got some pictures here you'll find on the border with Mexico where there are defined walls. And here, I'll zoom in on some of these. So all around here, there's just a defined wall, some defined border with Mexico. This is right here. This is the Pacific Ocean. So this is San Diego, California, and this is Tijuana, Mexico. And I've actually been right here to this beach. And it's kind of interesting that they have this bullfighting arena on their side of the border. And we just have a kind of this open land space. And I remember when I was on this beach, I saw a sign that said, don't swim here, the water's dirty and toxic. But then I looked through the border and I saw just Mexican people as far as I could see hanging out on their side of the beach. And I was like, it's the same water, what the heck? So yeah, that's the border there. Then here's the border along most of the desert. That border seems to make sense. And I think this is the border between Mexicali and Ciudad Juarez, I think. All right. Or no, El Paso and Juarez. That's it. Okay. So there's one more part of the border, which is the Rio Grande River. And this is the one we're really focusing on. So a river is generally a pretty easy spot to see in real life and on a map. And okay, the river's the border. I get it. And I guess it's understandable that each country would use about half the water in the river. And here's the part from Article 5 that talks about the river. From the mouth of the river, up the middle of that river, following the deepest channel, where it has more than one, to the point where it strikes the southern boundary of New Mexico. So it's saying that the actual border between Mexico and America is the middle of the river on the deepest part of the river. So those almost contradict each other sometimes, because what if the river's has multiple deep parts that are on opposite sides? Okay, I could describe this better if I was a person. And another thing is, this river, the Rio Grande, is a famous river for not following normal river rules. And I'm going to deep dive into this right now. So the Rio Grande, America's great river, right there at the border with Mexico. Sometimes the river runs dry. Okay, this is a very environmentally determined river. So my question that I propose to the class is, when the river runs dry, does it change where the border is, because sometimes when the river runs dry, it can kind of run in a little different directions. And according to the treaty, the border is in the middle of the river where it's the deepest. Well, if the river changes, does the border also change? That's what I want to know. Also, other times the river floods, and if this river is flooding, it can destroy buildings around it. Like here's some damage, I think, to Corpus Christi. And how are you going to build a wall in the middle of a river that's constantly changing so much? And then also, when the river floods, I'm sure the deepest part of the river changes. So does that therefore also mean the border changes? This isn't really clear in the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. So yeah, here's the river super flooding, and then, yep, the river's getting big. Here it is in Corpus Christi. So when the river gets really deep over here, does this mean that some of these people thinking they were living in America now live in Mexico? Like this is the question I'm proposing to the class. And then, yeah, does the border change when the river changes? And here's two pictures of the same spot. You could just see at different times of the year, this river looks dramatically different. And then this is another thing that I just think is super crazy. There are some parts of this river where the river splits and it creates these little islands in the middle of the river. So let's zoom in on these. So like right here, the river's split in two and there's this island in the middle. And maybe this picture, yeah, this picture's a little bit better. So this island in the middle, okay, like I think it's pretty clear. Everyone will say this is America and this side's Mexico. But this island in the middle, is it terra nullius? Is it no one's land? Could you go there and create your own little micro country legally? Like, I honestly think you can. So find those little river islands and set up your own private nation. No one will stop you. Okay, so also, all the land near this big river is perfect for agriculture. People love growing stuff where there's a lot of water. Makes sense. And especially tomatoes, sugarcane, green veggies. And over the last 150 years, there's been some serious confusion over who owns parts of the river, or who owns parts of the land by the river when the river changes course. And there are times when Mexican people have been accused of, oh, you're illegally in the United States. What are you doing in this country? And they're like, I legitimately thought I was in Mexico. For the last 3 years, my family's been farming here. The river slightly changed course a little bit. I thought I was fine. I'm not on the other side of the river. What the heck? So, yeah, it's because the river is malleable and is moving around, it does make it difficult to know what country you're even in. So keep that in mind. All right, here's a whole lot of farming going on by the river, and then, yep, there they are, growing food by the Rio Grande. Another thing, too, is we try to control the security of this border, and we've got these gunships that go all up and down the river. And a lack of bridges, also just to prevent people from crossing over. So there's only a few bridges, and they're constantly controlled by Border Patrol. But some immigrants are so desperate to come to America, they swim across this river and sometimes drown. It's definitely, once you get especially closer to the Gulf of Mexico, the river gets a lot thicker, deeper, faster, and it's definitely not unheard of to find dead bodies in this river of people trying to come to the United States. So maybe this river isn't the best way to decide who owns what side of the country, or what country owns what side of the river. So here's some people trying to swim across in inflated plastic bags or garbage bags. I don't think that's a great idea. Here's some other people going across on a boat. Here's the Border Patrol with the big old guns. And then, yeah, look, how many machine guns are on this dang thing? Like 8? Oh my goodness. And they're the Texas Highway Patrol. They should be the Waterway Patrol, let's be honest. And then dead people. And yeah, people die trying to swim across the river. It's kind of scary. All right, and then yeah, here's just a bunch of links that I found really quickly. 1,340,000 links about the Rio Grande River drownings. So it's not uncommon for people to drown going across this river. So There's just a lot of issues with America and Mexico's border. So why don't you guys tell me if there's a better way of determining where the border is with America and Mexico? And a lot of these concepts will be on an FRQ. So peace out.